Imagine you're a Thai ruler in the year 1600, joining a ritual your ancestors had made for centuries. You sail to Beijing, you kneel before the Chinese emperor, you accept a seal, bow your head, and play your part. From the outside, it looks like submission, it looks like you just gave up your independence, but when you sail home, you're not empty-handed. You return with recognition, protection, and most valuable, a direct pipeline into China's markets. You acknowledged a hierarchy, yet kept domestic control. So what just happened? Surrender or strategy? That question sits at the heart of this story, and it points to the hidden mechanism behind the kowtow. We're looking at a trade protocol dressed up as ritual, the kowtow contract, a free trade zone in disguise. Why would proud kings bow, then sail home richer, safer, and more secure than when they arrived? Because the mechanism paid out. You performed hierarchy to unlock market access and a defense premium. Here's how the contract worked. The court granted investiture, letters, seals, and the imperial calendar that signaled your throne was legitimate within a wider order. That wasn't theatre for its own sake. It stabilized succession and muted rivals. Then, while the court staged ceremony, caravans and junks moved. China wanted aromatics, metals, horses, and tropical goods. Missions delivered them and received silk, cloth, and other returns that often exceeded the face value of tribute. Stack that against European playbooks built on conquest and occupation, armies burn money and sow resistance. China preferred pageantry that set ranks, then monetized access. But when the system was challenged, it could swing a sword. Multiple campaigns in Vietnam, punitive expeditions, and frontier wars showed that force backed the script when needed. Theatre lowered costs, power enforced the boundaries, Korea shows the steady state model, regular embassies, shared writing and administrative methods, and domestic control under local kings. The relationship ran roughly from early dynasties through 1895, when Japan forced China to recognize Korean independence over a millennium of missions under a predictable framework. Hierarchy could bend when power demanded it. Han rulers cut deals with the Xiongnu. Tang elites married into Tibetan royalty. These were moments when China faced peers and negotiated from relative parity, and the system adapted to match the balance of power without snapping. Follow the money. Tribute quotas were capped and symbolic. The real returns came from attached trade, licensed sales in designated markets, and the side cargo that rode with envoys and merchants. A mission might carry official gifts on paper, but the profit lived in private consignments cleared under the same umbrella. Security sweetened the margin, being inside the network deterred raids, calmed frontier skirmishes, and gave merchants reliable schedules and safe harbors. Lower risk meant lower insurance and more voyages. That's how ceremony cut the cost of doing business across half a continent. Now watch what happens when a kingdom turns this protocol into state policy and builds an entire merchant engine around it. Shem's playbook, leveraging Beijing to build a merchant state. How did Siam stay sovereign across 1,272 years while tapping China's wealth pipeline? By turning ritual into policy and policy into profit. Step inside Ayutthaya and later Bangkok. From a distance, tribute looked like loss of face. Up close, it worked as a royal stamp that opened doors. The relationship ran from 581 to 1853. That consistency signaled to merchants and migrants that Siam was plugged into the biggest market in Asia. You weren't just bowing, you were onboarding. Here's the hidden mechanism. The court invited Chinese merchants to settle under clear rules. Officials farmed taxes to trusted syndicates. Shipping privileges went to those who could move cargo fast and in bulk. That tied Chinese diaspora networks directly into Siam's ports, canals, and warehouses. Revenue climbed because the same people who collected taxes financed voyages and guaranteed delivery. Less friction, more throughput. And crucially, this pattern wasn't unique to Siam. It showed up across successful tributary states that integrated Chinese networks into their own markets. Tribute missions doubled as trade runs. Ceremonies handed over gifts, cargo swapped hands in the warehouses, deer hides, sappan wood, tin, and rice went out. Silk, ceramics, and manufactured goods came in. The lists on paper stayed modest, but the side consignments riding with envoys and licensed merchants carried the real margins. Diplomatically, the badge of tributary status paid dividends. Siam could mediate disputes, de-escalate flare-ups, and claim seniority when rules were tested. At times, aligning with Beijing made sense to steady the neighborhood. During the Japanese invasions of Korea in the 1590s, Siam even offered military assistance, an alignment that showed Beijing the relationship could serve real strategic needs. That didn't erase autonomy, it gave Siam leverage when talks got hard. The economic upside pride showed up in the numbers traders cared about, risk and timing. Predictable embassies meant predictable market windows. Ritual protection lowered the chance of seizure or piracy. With schedules and safe harbors, insurers cut rates and investors funded more voyages. More voyages turned into more capital circulating through rice mills, tin mines, and shipyards. Rulers leaned on Chinese prestige during succession jitters and external threats. A seal, a calendar, and a well-timed mission reassured factions at home without inviting foreign control. One Chinese scholar in the 1800s even called Thailand China's strongest and most loyal Southeast Asian tributary. That loyalty was a strategy. Keep the pipeline open, keep the ships moving, and keep the court strong. Siam optimized access on a continental scale. Next, watch a small island kingdom scale speed and precision. Ryukyu Inc., the middleman that monetized tribute. How did a small island kingdom turn bowing to Beijing into a regional logistics empire? By treating ritual like a shipping license and ports like cash registers. Now you step onto Ryukyu's docks. The kingdom sits between China, Japan, and Southeast Asia, and that geography is the business. Tribute is the legal cover. Port warehouses are the monetization. With a court pass from Beijing, Ryukyu sails where others face walls. When Japan tightens outbound trade, Ryukyu keeps moving because the papers say envoy, and envoys move. In the Ming system, supervisораtes met these missions at designated ports. Ryukyu's channel ran through Quanzhou and Fujian, a gate built to manage Taiwan and Ryukyu. Contacts, here's the hidden mechanism. Tribute missions leave with official gifts on the manifest and high-margin private cargo below deck. On the return, Chinese goods flow back through Ryukyu's harbors, then fan out to markets that can't buy directly. Ceremony at the palace, settlement in the counting house, follow the cargo, outbound from China. Silk bolts, fine porcelain, paper, metal wares, inbound from Southeast Asia, pepper, sappanwood, aromatics that Chinese buyers will pay for. From Japan, silver and sulfur, the hard inputs that keep mines and industry running. The triangle turns, each leg feeding the next. Ryukyu's edge lives in operations. Diplomatic flags cut inspections, ritual exemptions ease fees and delays. Court calendars set sailing windows, which means schedules that merchants can actually trust. Market notes ride along with envoys, so ships point toward demand, not guesses. Less time idle, fewer seizures, more cycles per year. The numbers logic stacks up fast. The official tribute volume stays small by design, but voyages repeat. Every mission pulls a convoy of companion merchants. Margins compound because fixed costs, crews, hulls, routes are spread across more trips. A steady drumbeat of sailings turns small packets into a steady revenue stream. Then comes 1609. Satsuma takes control and Ryukyu learns a new trick: dual compliance. Keep the tributary rights for China while serving Japanese interests. Feed cargo and intelligence to Kagoshima. Keep investiture flowing from Beijing and hold the middleman seat. It's a sophisticated adaptation, proof that the system could flex under pressure. The balancing act lasted until 1879, when Japan formally annexed the kingdom and ended the arrangement for good. Ryukyu monetize deference, bow in the hall, run a brokerage on the quay, and harvest the spread between closed markets, which raises a harder question. When ritual keeps the lanes open, at what point does ceremony become a pricing tool the state tallies like any other cost? Which brings us to the turning point, from ritual gatekeeping to a taxable market and the crash. Under the the plan was simple on paper: channel all foreign trade through tribute. One mission, one batch of gifts, one controlled exchange. But the ships did not sail empty. Unofficial merchants rode along. Side cargo filled hulls. In port, the ledger overshadowed the ritual. The formal exchange stayed small. The unofficial market scaled up. The hidden mechanism took over. Hierarchy at the gate, volume in the warehouse. This created a tug of war. The state wanted ritual control, limited entrance, predictable decorum. Markets wanted scale, more voyages, deeper cargo, faster turnover. Smuggling bridged the gap. Licensed merchants blurred into envoys. The facade held for ceremony, while the bulk of value moved in the shadows and under flags that said mission. Then the pivot under the Qing. In 1684, the Kangxi Emperor opened coastal ports to private trade, and customs houses began counting, stamping, and taxing. That marked a fundamental shift. Tribute became largely symbolic for status and signals, while taxation turned into the primary revenue stream. Instead of fighting the current, the court set up toll booths along it. Diplomacy adjusted too. With Russia, protocols looked more equal and more practical. The Treaty of Nachinsk in 1689 and the Treaty of Kyakhta in 1728 fixed borders, kept caravans moving, and formalized a model where communications ran through secondary officials. No kowtow required. The message was clear: when parity kept the frontier quiet and the trade steady, parity was acceptable, but flexibility had limits. The ambiguity that made the system workable, rank on stage, bargaining backstage, turned brittle when legalistic industrial powers demanded equal treaties. The Opium Wars forced China to accept commercial rights, jurisdiction, and access by clause and canon, directly challenging Beijing's ability to control the terms of foreign relationships. The hierarchical foundation met a rulebook that insisted on sovereign equality. Then came the collapses in sequence. Japan annexed Ryukyu in 1879. France locked down Vietnam in the 1880s after war with China. Britain absorbed Burma. In 1895, China recognized Korea's independence. Thailand moved toward equal treaties and stopped sending tribute. Nepal sent its last tribute mission in 1908, a concrete endpoint to a fading web. By the early 20th century, the network had thinned to ceremony without teeth. Once Western empires enforced formal access, guns, paperwork, and steam schedules priced the routes instead of deference. What began as ritual gatekeeping matured into a taxable market, and then met a world that ran on explicit contracts and force. Now pull back and see the core strategy that made the whole machine run. What it shows is a system that blended ceremony with commerce and knew when to switch rulebooks. The core strategy ran like Asia's first supply chain: ritual at the door, profit and security in the back room. It scaled because kowtows and calendars cost less than armies, while sanctioned trade and safer borders paid out year after year. The hidden mechanism showed us how soft rules organized hard flows of goods, credit, and protection. Today's talk of win-win cooperation and peaceful development echoes that playbook. The surprising fact is that soft power can build hard wealth, but only while technological, economic, and military advantages hold. When those edges erode, others set the terms. If this changed how you see power and trade, subscribe and share. Tell me which hidden economic system you want decoded next.